Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Gavello and I'm the president of the board of directors for the Diablo Symphony Association for the Diablo Symphony Orchestra. And I'm here in the lovely backyard with Mr. Pat Campbell, who is the former president of the board of directors for the Diablo Symphony. And I'm here today to get a little bit of background on the orchestra from Pat. He's been involved with this orchestra for many years. And Pat, I just wanted to start by asking you how you got involved with the orchestra and when that was.
Oh my goodness. My good wife Shirley is a flute player, and she joined the orchestra. And good husband here, I would like to support her, of course. And in 1984, two members of the board, a couple named Robert and Roberta Cole, now in the Midwest, asked me if I would join the board and bring my business knowledge to the board for whatever value that might be. That was my way of supporting my good wife, so I said yes. And the ensuing time from then until about a year ago has been one of the most wonderful periods of my life, as 15 years of that being president of the Diablo Symphony Orchestra. It has been an honor to be associated with these ambitious players, exciting players, so good. And to be a part of seeing the concerts go. There's nothing like standing in the wings of the Leisure Theater and getting ready to start a concert, getting ready to go out and make my stage announcement, and looking at the audience who've spent a lot of time and effort getting here to hear us, the players who have spent an equal amount of time and effort to be there to play for them, and even look up in the balcony, see some people there, and then watch the maestro come out, acknowledge to the audience, turn to me, it's my turn to go out and make a stage pitch. The honor of being in that position and being a part of it is just enormous. It's been a very satisfying time, which you're going to find equally satisfying in addition to playing in the orchestra.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very nice to be able to have folks like you to, help understand where we came from and to be able to, kind of pass the baton in a sense. So, yes.
Yes, I understand.
So my next question is, when you first joined the orchestra, was it the same size it is now? Was it performing in the same place that it is now?
No, we've gone through quite a history on that. The orchestra's been the same size, always around 50 to 60 people. People do come and go, but it's a standard community classical orchestra. And in the early days, the symphony was formed back in 1962 as a part of the Mount Diablo Unified School District adult program. There was a lady at the time named Thelma Compton, a cello player who felt she would like to play in a symphony orchestra, and there was none around. So she made some noises, found some akin people that liked to play also, and approached the Mount Diablo School District. And in Concord, the Concord Civic Arts Organization thought this would be wonderful. Oh, we could have a symphony orchestra up in Concord? Walnut Creek does not have a symphony orchestra, so we'll get one ahead there. There was a lot of competition at the time between Walnut Creek and Concord as who was the arts center for the Diablo Valley. Walnut Creek, of course, felt they were, well, Concord now had a one-up. So Concord, for years, a couple of years, sponsored the Diablo Symphony Orchestra. And then there was some problems that came up between a director at the time, music director, and it kind of soured in Concord, but Walnut Creek picked up and said, oh, yes, come down. We have a Civic Arts League. We have a theater, too. Up in Concord, you have to play in multi-purpose rooms in high schools and so on. We've got a real theater. Now, what the theater was called the Nut House. You ever heard of the Nut House?
The Nut House.
The Nut House. Walnut Creek has its name Walnut Creek because in earlier days, this whole area was covered with walnut orchards. We were the walnut suppliers practically for the world, and the farmers had an organization, the Walnut Creek Growers Association, and they had a warehouse downtown. And the purpose of the warehouse was to receive the walnuts when they're harvested, package them up, make them ready for shipment, and so on. And it just sort of gathered the name Nut House informally. Well, gradually that interest faded. Other people got into the walnut business, and the Walnut Creek Civic Arts Organization took over the building, painted it all black inside, put chairs in, and we now had the Civic Arts League Theater for the city of Walnut Creek, which was the only theater of that nature in this whole area. And now that definitely gave Walnut Creek a leg up. So we played in the Nut House. It was a wonderful building. It wasn't really quite adequate. The sound wasn't that good inside, and it wasn't that great for a symphony orchestra. We needed a little bit more stage space. And the other folks, the people putting on plays and shows, needed things like lights and so on. So word got around, and good Mr. Dean Lesher of the Lesher Papers elected to put up some money if other people would join him. And we had Mr. Hoffman, real estate person, I believe, who put in money, other donors. And out of that came what we now call the Lesher Center for the Arts in the place where the building used to be. And now, Jessica, next time you go there and you're in the green room upstairs, I want you to look on the back wall, because when we tore down the Nut House, we wanted a going away party. And what the folks did at the time, they brought in cans of white paint and little brushes and set it up on some tables, and all of the participants that night who were in the green room were invited to paint their name on the black wall. That was the back wall of the theater.
Oh.
Then a picture was taken, and of course the wall was demolished. But if next time you go in the green room, look on the back wall of the green room. There is an enormous picture of what was the back wall of the Nut House. And look right in the middle on top, because Shirley and I have our name up there, Diablo Symphony Orchestra. So we've got our signature on the Nut House
great.
wall.
I love that.
Oh, it's wonderful. Go in there and remember.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out next time I get lost backstage, which happens a lot. Well, so the Nut House was right where the Lesher Theater is now?
Yep.
Okay. So when they were building the Lesher Theater, do you remember where we performed?
Multi-purpose rooms,
Okay. We made do.
gymnasiums, high school places, still inadequate, but workable. And at that time, we took a look at the makeup of our audience as a marketing ploy, and we found that a good percentage of the audience lived in Rossmore. And we talked to some of the Rossmore folks. They elected to form an organization in Rossmore, and the Diablo Symphony is actually an official Rossmore club, even at this day after all these years. The Rossmore folks were very important. They put their money was very strong, and they also were very good organizers. And if we look in our board of directors, articles of incorporation records, you find that much of the people who officially organized the Diablo Symphony in 1968 have Rossmore addresses. Particularly a gentleman named William Donaldson, very important gentleman in our past. And let's see, where do I want to go from here? Go give me another question.
So when was William Donaldson a key component to becoming involved with Rossmore?
He was.
Okay.
He was.
So did we start performing there, or did we develop a relationship over time? How did that kind of play out?
We very quickly began to perform in Rossmore. they had space for us in the various clubhouses they have, and it made it very much easier for the Rossmore folks to attend our concerts if we were there, certainly, than to have to go to some remote high school someplace. So Rossmore has been very important to us, and we thank them for their participation and over the years.
Were there any other places that we performed besides Rossmore and multi-purpose rooms? Were there any other opportunities that we had to perform at other venues?
Not that I remember in particular, not on my watch. We primarily performed at the Lesher Theater, with one exception, and this was a wonderful thing. Since we were sponsored in part by the Mount Diablo Education Unified School District, they had a hand in the construction of the Concord Pavilion. The pavilion is still out in the foothills of the mountains behind Concord. And the pavilion folks is a former car dealer, I think it was a Chevrolet dealer if I recall, was putting on performances of jazz programs and miscellaneous music programs in various sites, and really wanted to do a better job. So he was all for setting up some type of a performance in the mountains type thing. And out of that came the Concord Pavilion. There was an organization set up at the time called Pavilion Associates, and they were to that group what DRAA, Diablo Regional Arts Association, is to our current Lesher Theater. Now, they were looking for people to perform. It was difficult to bring in outside professional groups every night or every weekend of the year, and obviously the Diablo Symphony welcomed the opportunity to play at the Concord Pavilion, and for many years we would give a performance there right around 4th of July. We would definitely do it on a Sunday, even if the 4th of July was a different day, and arrangements were made for fireworks, and at the end of our performance on that Sunday afternoon we would shoot fireworks off and just have a grand early or somewhat late maybe 4th of July celebration. The audience was welcome to just sit on the grass all around. They could sit in the seats too, certainly. We had volunteers among us who would take drums, cardboard drums, and had holes in the top, and they would circulate among the audience and collect donations. That was our intake. There was no charge as such. And we did that for many, many years. We would bring outside groups to join us. It was just a wonderful opportunity. One of our violin players of the day had been, maybe you could remember the name better, it's a violin group, Suzuki violins.
Oh,
The little kids with the little tiny violins, and they're just darling, and they were very, very good. And that was one of our featured artists one time. Another time, Shirley and I had been traveling, and we were in the Caribbean, and we saw a drum group on a story extended. The island Aruba, we had a former employee of ours that moved there, and on a business trip we visited the island, and David said, "Pat, have you ever seen a drum group play Beethoven?" I said, "A steel drum playing Beethoven? Yeah, come here." And he drove me to the other side of the island, and there in the water, in the sea, in the ocean, in the shore, shallow water, were drums of all sorts and people ready to play and so on. We got there just about at the start, and they took off and they did a Beethoven. And my God, Jessica, you can't believe it. I could close my eyes and listen, and there were the flutes and the first strings and the second strings, and there would be basses off in the corner.
wow.
And it was just magnificent. They were playing Beethoven. I was astonished. Well, sometime later, I was on a business trip in afternoon in Berkeley, and on a corner was this drum group. this huge 6-foot guy with a big drum, and a couple somewhat shorter guys, smaller drums, and they were doing a wonderful job. So they took a break, and I went up and introduced myself, showed him my card, and it said symphony. And he said, "Man, you play symphony?" And I said, "Well, I'm the president of an organization, but I don't play in it." No. He said, "Oh, man, that music, Beethoven." And I'm thinking, he said Beethoven. He said, "That's music." And he grabbed my shoulder, and I think I still got broken bones up there. And he says, "That's music, man, that's music. Oh." And I said, "Would you like to play with my Diablo Symphony?" And I was really out of line doing this. But at the time we had a conductor named Joyce Johnson Hamilton, and she could do anything. So I figured, I'll just take the chance.
Good for you.
And he gave me cards, and yeah, he was all over me. He would love to play with our symphony orchestra. So, true enough, on the Lesher stage, one Sunday, we had the Diablo Symphony introducing the so-and-so drum group, and they did just a magnificent job introducing
cool.
Caribbean music into the symphonic music we were playing for the afternoon. So here again, things that professional orchestra maybe find a little more difficult to do, but our community orchestra can do this. We had a wonderful time playing this marvelous Caribbean rhythm with the whole orchestra, of course, doing Caribbean rhythm, all ready to get up and start sounding on stage. And so that was one of the aspects that just made this job as president so wonderful, was we could do things like that. We could do things off the top as a community orchestra that maybe a professional orchestra might not want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course the audience enjoyed it. We had some people get up and dance in the aisles. It was that effective.
Are there any other concert experiences that you had with the symphony that just stand out for you as being very special, or just that made you just well up inside with pride or passion? What about your lovely wife? Was there one for her that stood out maybe?
Well, actually, my lovely wife, maybe swing the camera over and get a shot of her. My lovely wife was one of the first 3-4 people ever to play in the Lesher Theater.
Wow.
The Lesher Theater was being built, and concrete was being poured. There were boards over the top. You could walk and so on. And the authorities said, "Pat, do you think you could arrange some entertainment? We'd like to bring the heavy rollers through, donors, and we need a little entertainment. So while we give them a tour of the building that they're sponsoring, we might as well have some music inside." So Good Shirley, her wind group, played chamber music, and they were the very first ones to play on what was then still a somewhat damp concrete floor underneath the pit in the front stage area of the Lesher Theater.
Oh my goodness,
I
that's
had
so
the hard
special.
hats too.
Oh, yes.
Hard hats, that
They
makes
had
sense.
to
You've got to
wear-
be safe on
they
a
had to
construction
wear
site.
hard hats.
Everybody remember
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So that's a memorable event, yes.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, going forward into the future, is there anything that you really want to see the orchestra do more of, or anything that you think that is working really well right now?
Well, what's working really right now is that, as with all orchestras, you eventually change the front management, and we did that some time back. Joyce retired, and we went through 5 conductors who auditioned with us, and the winner was our present conductor, Matilda Hoffman, and she has proven to be as imaginative and energetic as Joyce. I think she was trained well with Joyce. I don't know if they ever really got together, but I look forward to many new things coming about as Matilda continues her stint in the stirrups as the music director of the orchestra. She's very imaginative, I say energetic. I've sat in on rehearsals, and now I'm a banjo player, so what do I know about music, classical music? But I've sat in and listened on rehearsals, and it astounds me when Matilda will draw close, point to somebody and say that was a B, not a B flat. And the person acknowledges, sorry, Matilda. And I'm wondering, how does a person have an ear where out of 50 people playing, she can pick one person out who's a half note off? But that's the quality of people that we have attracted. That's the quality of the leadership we have. And she has proven already to be imaginative. One of the things that she did that the orchestra, I mentioned, is something the orchestra has particularly done. One of the things we've done is have children come up. We have petting zoos with the orchestra. And I attended one of these, and it was more fun. My God. The instruments, the musicians have tables set out, and they have their instruments out all arrayed around. And they invite the kids in the orchestra, now, come on up. This is a special Kids' Day program, so we get the kids to come on up. Come to the tables and see what you would like to play in the way of a symphonic orchestra instrument. So I remember standing by the horn table, trumpets, trombones, and French horn. And a gentleman at the time with us, we miss him dearly, it was Bill Ike. And he had it all set up. He had a big rubber tube with a funnel stuck in the end. And then he had some mouthpieces here. And he would get the kids over, and he would take a mouthpiece. He said, "Do you ever play a horn?" "No." "Would you like to?" "Well, yeah." "Oh, well, I'm going to teach you how to play." And he'd say, "Now listen, let me take this mouthpiece, and I'm going to, and it would make a noise. And then he'd say, "Now, let me ask you a question. When your mom serves broccoli, what do? Do you like it?" "Well, one thing the kid probably doesn't really know what broccoli is, but don't like it very well." "What do you do when you don't like broccoli?" "You go, okay. Here, try this now. I want you to hold this up. You take it, hold it up there. Now I'm going to ask you a question. What do you do when your mom says we're going to have broccoli for dinner?" And the kid, of course, would go and then get a sound out. He'd say, "That's wonderful." Then he'd plug it in the end of the rubber hose with the funnel on the end, hold the funnel up to the kid's ear, and say, "What do you do when your mom says we're going to have broccoli?" We get the bit, but now we get a tone out the funnel. It's a real horn. It really is. And oh my God, well, you're wonderful. You're already a musician.
And I bet the kids' faces just...
Oh, the kids, they're beaming now, and they're hustling with each other, trying to grab the mouthpiece so they could blow it. They've got 2, 3 of them up there. And then he would take the mouthpiece, slip it into a trombone, and say, "Hold this. Now, go through the mother and the broccoli routine." And of course, now we get a tone out the trombone piece. All right, now slide this thing back and forth. Well, now you got a kid blowing and actually making a trombone sound. What more delightful thing could you ask for? What better way to teach kids, this is something I would like to do? The string people had their, their own version of cellos that they could play and so on. And one of the final things I'll mention, the percussion folks, of course, have bang bangs. And I was at Bill Ike's table, and all of a sudden I heard this bam! And it was just loud. And then it was bam again. And I turned and looked over my shoulder to the percussion section, Robert Hamaker's area. And here was this big drum, and here was this 7, 8, 9-year-old girl with a, what do you call it, the stick that hit a big drum with the big ball on the end.
Mm-hmm.
And she was not going to be like any boy twerp and just go boom. She stood back and went, "Wow, man, I may never get a chance to do this again." And bam, bam, she hit it on the backstroke and so on. It was just adorable.
Sounds like my kind of girl.
Just my kind of girl, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that's a memorable one. I can wake up in the middle of the night and hear that bam go off. Yeah.
That's so special.
And the smile on her face.
I know.
I'm doing better than the boys. I can hit this.
That's right. That's right. She obviously had something to prove too.
I often wonder if the drum for that instant became some boy that had um,
Picked on her or something?
picked on her, yeah. She got even.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, that's so special. And yeah, that's a huge. I think it's hugely important that we continue to build with more petting zoos in the future. So
Yeah.
we'll definitely be doing more of those, and hopefully more frequently. And we're just so lucky to continue to have you involved in the orchestra. So thank you very much for your
Oh, you're
support,
welcome.
and
Welcome.
we'll be seeing you all again hopefully soon.